Greetings, YouTube. This is Chris over at SkyTech Enterprise Solutions. Today, we have a video that combines SQL Server and Splunk. This is going to be an interesting one, folks. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so what I have here is a SQL Server instance, and as you can see, I have downloaded and installed the ever popular AdventureWorks database. I actually have two of them here. I have the AdventureWorks DW data warehouse and the AdventureWorks LT 2019 installed. If you were to go into the tables of each database, you'll see that it has a bunch of tables in there. Okay. There we go. This one has more tables. And if you were to select the top 1,000 rows in each table, you would see quite a little bit of information. And this is surprising. I mean, this thing took how many seconds to run, but it just came out with 11 rows. So who knows, my computer might be slow, but let's do another one. Okay, so as you can see, this is the code that is actually SQL Server is running in order to produce this content. Okay. All right, so let us run another select top. And here we are. We have some data. Okay, so as as SQL Server is running, right, it does create log files here. And if we were to refresh this, we would see that we do have log files. Today is 10/18/2022. There are log files here. Some of them, this one's current. These are archived, right? So they're saved in pretty much in storage. But this is the current one, which means SQL Server is actively connected to this particular log file, and it's writing log rows into that file, right? So if we want to go look at this log, we can just simply go to view log, view SQL Server log, and here we see that, you know, it's 10/18, which is today's date, and the server time here is that. Well, let's go back here. It's 30. Anyway, so yeah, this is the time. All right. Now, Splunk, you know, you might be wondering, what has this got to do with Splunk? As we mentioned earlier, Splunk can pretty much import a lot of data types. It can import from a lot of data sources. You can import spreadsheets into Splunk, text files, comma delimited lists, which is pretty much a watered down version of an Excel spreadsheet. There's a lot you can import into Splunk. Splunk can actually connect to the SQL Server that we're looking at in real time and monitor these log files that are being created in real time, right? So you may not have to import this log file into Splunk. You can tell Splunk to go to that folder where this log file lives and actually monitor that folder, right? So there's a lot of things you can do with Splunk. Those are advanced concepts. We'll get there eventually. But what we want to do is really import a bit of data into Splunk. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to export one of these log files, and these are all log files, right? So these icons you're looking at represent one log file, a separate log file, a different log file, etc., etc., etc. Okay. All right, so let's do that. We're going to export this, and I'll just make a folder here and call it SQL Server log files, right? Oh, exported SQL Server log files, right? Just make it easy to figure out. And we'll just call this log file. We'll call this SQL, what is it, 10/17/2022. And let's see what else I could call it, 1041. All right. So in this case, if we were to go into this folder, what we'll see is that this log file that we exported is right here. And if we double click it, you'll find out that it's a text file, right? There's nothing magical about this. It's a simple text file, right? And if you want to compare it to SQL Server, what we're looking at, you can see that you have a lot of rows in here, which kind of corresponds to a lot of this data in here, right? Okay, we're going to close SQL Server, and this time around, we are going into Splunk itself, and we're going to import this log file. Okay, so we'll go to Settings, and we'll click on Add Data. And then we'll upload files from my computer. And you can do this, in several ways. You can either drag and drop your file, or you can go to Select File. In this case, I simply want to drag and drop. It's much easier. Okay. And right, so here we go. FAQs. What kinds of files can the Splunk platform index? Right, as you can see, it's many kinds. The Splunk platform recognizes many different file formats, and you can configure it to recognize many more. So this part here means that you can tell Splunk to recognize files that it doesn't even know how to recognize, right? You can configure it, and it's all in the configuration. And this is high level engineering work. Out of the box, yes, Splunk still has access to many different files and file types it can import into itself and index and search. But if you want to, let's say you have a project where you meet a situation where the log files that you're dealing with are not out of the box configurable or recognizable by Splunk, you can actually customize things over here. What is a source? A source is a file, a network stream, or a specialized output such as Windows log or SQL log. All right. The Splunk platform uses the source field of an indexed event to identify the event's original location or method of input. Again, index event means it's neatly arranged into some kind of a logical form, right? That makes it easier to find. All right. All right, let's go back to what we're doing. So again, remember we selected the file. This is it here. It's already dragged and dropped into this interface. We're going to click on Next. Okay. So this is our source types, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 log types. So as you can see out of the box, I'm sorry, I meant to say source type, right? So out of the box, Splunk can deal with a lot of content, a lot of data, a lot of information from many, many, many different sources, okay? All right. And these are additional settings you can delve into if you have time, but just for the sake of this particular video, you can see that we've imported this log file into Splunk. It's already displaying properly. Okay. All right. So we're going to click on the next button, and we're going to call it SQL Server Log. All right, and we'll just give it an extra name here. We'll call it 439, just for whatever time it is right now. Let's see, we'll add PM to that. And as you remember, you cannot save this item with dashes in the name. All right, so here we'll just say SQL Server log file Just leave it at that. Category is custom, obviously. Well, you know what? Let's just call it database because that's what it is. Where do we want it to pretty much live? Right? What app do we want to display this item here? And we'll just call it, well, I think currently my homepage is set to search and reporting. So we're going to leave it there, right? And we'll look at how it looks afterwards. All right. Now, remember, we're importing a log file, right? But every time you import data into Splunk, you have to tell that data where to go and live. Like you're letting in someone into your house or your hotel or your mansion or your castle. You have to come in and say, hey, John Doe, you sleep in this room here, right? Room 21, room 405, what have you. So it's the same concept here. We imported data, we imported one log file. We need to tell it where to go and live. All right. And where it's going to live will make it easier to find because once you let John Doe into that hotel, you put him in room 105. If someone comes in and says, hey, where's John Doe? You need to find John Doe, right? And you remember you put John Doe into room 105. That's the whole point of indexing, arranging things in a logical manner for easier retrieval. Okay, so what we're going to do is we can select default as the index, which is the big bucket that everyone goes into, right? It's a big room. Everybody lives in there like a warehouse. Or you can say, well, we're going to put this new data that we're importing into its own specific index or room. All right, so we're going to call this SQL Server tutorial, right? Let's just call it. No, it's an SQL Server log file. Oops. Log repository, right? Just something to make it sound and look different. Repository. Okay, all this stuff here, we're going to leave it. This is my favorite here. Every time I see gigabytes, I just cringe. I don't want my computer to run out of space ever. All right, so we reduce this to megabytes, and we will simply click again. Which app is this index going to be in? Right? We have to change that. So let's call it. Gosh, I think we did create something. Okay. All right, guys. I need to go back. Back again. So now you know that you can go back, right? All right. Let's go back. Let's go forward now, and we'll call this SQL Server log. What is it? 442 now. Okay. Okay. And we'll call it SQL Server log file. And we're going to put this into, so yeah, it's going to show up in the search and reporting area. And since we created an index, we're going to drop this into an index. Yeah, we'll call it, yep, that's it right there, Splunk SQL data. Okay. Now we're going to review. And we get this neat little review page here, right? Where it says your input type is an uploaded file. This is the name of the file itself. Source type, right? That's the name we gave it to that index. And no, I'm sorry. Anyway, and the host is this server name, and this is the index. Okay. Now we're going to hit submit. The file has been uploaded successfully. Now we can start searching it. All right. Now, a very key point here I'm going to point out is once this page loads, all this information you're looking at is coming from this piece of code here, right? So it's kind of similar to, all this information you're looking at here comes from that piece of code. And this is SQL Server Management Studio. Okay. Now, you can save this, what we're looking at, you can save this as a view, right? So that every time you come back into SQL Server, you don't need to type this anymore. You just run that view and you'll see this data, okay? So that's for the benefit of those with SQL Server knowledge or experience. So same way, when you come into Splunk now, you don't have to write all this code, right? You don't have to find a source, source type here. You don't have to input the host information. You don't have to type in the index. You don't have to put in the source type, right? All you could do, you could copy the stuff here, right? And what I do here, see, go to my Splunk commands and you can save it. See, you can save it as a command here, right? And this will be a snippet, right? So next time you're looking for this information, you can come in here, copy it, paste it, and it'll run, right? You can run it. However, who wants to do that every morning? You come to work, you have your cup of joe, you sit down, and you have to now go run code, right? A smart thing to do is to save this, okay, as, and you have options. You can save it as a report, which is all this stuff we're looking at down here. You can save it as an alert. You can save it to an existing dashboard. You can save it as a new dashboard. You can save it as an event type, okay? In this case, we'll go with the first option here. We're gonna save this as a report, and I'll simply call it SQL Server Log, 442. All right, and I'll hit save. It says your report has been created. You may now view your report and add it to a dashboard. Change additional settings or leave it as is. So the settings are, you can change permissions, you can change the schedule that this report will run, you can embed this into another page, etc., etc. Okay. Now, I want to view it. Okay. So as you can see, there it is, a shiny new report. If I were to go here and look at all the reports that I have, okay, you can see that that's the report that we were looking at, report SQL Server Log 442. Created today, October 18th, 4:46 p.m. Eastern Standard. Now, let's say I want to add it to a dashboard. I want to add this report to a dashboard, right? Let's go look at what dashboards I have existing right now. Okay. So I don't have any SQL Server log file dashboard or a dashboard that's, displaying SQL Server information. So I can say add to dashboard. I can go with an existing one, which, it's going to find all these guys sitting here, which are basically these guys here. But in this case, I want a brand new dashboard. So I'm going to call it SQL Server Log Dash or Dashboard. All right. Add some camel notation here. All right. Do I want it to be private, meaning only I'm the only one that sees it? Or do I want to share it with my colleagues? Sometimes when you're doing this job here using Splunk, a lot of your reports might be messy and you want to keep them to yourself, So I'll keep it private in this sense. All right. I'm going to click on save. And now let's go over to the dashboard list over here. We'll do a refresh. And you can see my SQL Server dashboard is right here. See? So this information right here, actually, I don't think that's it. Let me go back. Let's go back. Yep, that is it. Yep. So this guy right here, all this information is now imported into Splunk. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, we have imported this SQL log file into Splunk itself. Okay, so folks, this is how you do it. You can easily import Splunk. You can export SQL Server log files into Splunk, right? If you need to watch this video over and over, please do. But to recap, what we did is that we went into SQL Server, right? We located a log file here. And then we exported that log file. We saved it as a text file. And then we went into Splunk itself. We clicked on Add Data, upload files from my computer. And then we dragged and dropped this log file into Splunk. We went through these prompts until we actually created, we ended up creating an index for this file to live in, right? And then we also added that import as a report, right? We created a report out of that imported data, and then we also added that report to a dashboard. Okay, so it's quite a few steps there. Again, like I said, you can replay this video just to get, some key points. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, and again, as you can see, I can set this as my homepage, set as home dashboard. So let's do that and see how that looks. So every time I come into Splunk here, didn't show up as I wanted it to. However, you get the idea, okay? So folks, that is how you pretty much import data into Splunk. We'll do a few more videos regarding this, this particular topic here. It's really, 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 really important that you're able to do that and kind of practice to the point where you are very conversant with importing data into Splunk. That is the biggest power of Splunk is Splunk needs to eat a lot of data, right? It needs to eat a lot of information. However, if you don't feed it, it cannot actually produce anything for you. Okay, it's like your car. If you don't put gas in your car, yeah, you cannot expect it to drive for very long, right?